Okay, well, good morning, ninth graders. I hope you guys had a very good Easter weekend and were able to reflect on what the Lord has done for us. I hope the test went well. So I hope everybody was able to turn that in. If you haven't sent that in and you're watching this video, please send that in. But this video, we're starting a new chapter. We are on chapter 10. So this is 10.1. And this is about common monomials. Okay, and it's not just about them, but it's actually about factoring. So when you hear the word factoring, right, a word that's in there is the word factor. And so hopefully this brings back some memories. Greatest common factor. That was written as the GCF back in the day when you were learning this stuff. GCF, greatest common factor. And the way you find the greatest common factor, if you need to write that down, go ahead, but I'm going to move on here. If you need the way you find the greatest common factor, let's say we're doing greatest common factors and we have the number 40. The way we do this is we do a prime number tree. So if it's an even number, I just divide by 2. I get 2 and 20, I get 2 and 10, and I get 2 and 5. Okay, now that's not very hard, right? 2, 2, 2, and 5, those are prime numbers. Now, let's say I was trying to find the greatest common factor of 40, and the greatest common factor of 64. Okay, to break this down, I get 4 and 16, 2 and 2, 4 and 4, 2 and 2, and 2 and 2. Now, the way I know what's in common, the greatest common factor, is I circle a matching pair. That 2 has exactly one match. Okay, that 2 has exactly one match. That 2 has exactly one match. Now, I take the number from this one tree, okay, and this one tree, the red circles, so in this case, it's 2 times 2 times 2, which 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Right over here, 2 times 2 times 2, same thing, is 8, right? So I know that the greatest common factor is 8, okay? So if I was going to divide these numbers, okay, I would divide them each by 8, and they'd be the most reduced as possible. So let's say we were looking at something that was like this right here. They gave me 40, right? That was our example. 40x squared minus 64x. Now, if I'm going to use the greatest common factor, the GCF, don't come here, circle, the GCF of that, what went into this one? It was 8, right? I need to divide by 8. So when I take this number right here and I divide by the greatest common factor, which is 8, and so when I divide that, I get 5. Okay, does everybody see that? 40 divided by 8 is 5. Okay, so 40 divided by 8 is 5. Then I leave the minus sign, and I do the same thing. I do 64 divided by 8, and 64 divided by 8 is 8. So I get 8. Okay, now that's fun. I did the factoring, right? I distributed. But now, look at this. How many x's do I have here that I can take out of each one? I have at least one x in each one. This one has an x, and this one has x times x. Okay, x times x. So what I can do is I can pull an x out of this and get 8x. Now, what happens when I do this x squared, right? There's 2 of them. I pull 1 away, and I'm left with 1. And here I had 1, and I minus an x, and they all go away. And so that leads me to my final answer, which is 8x, 5x minus 8. Right there is how we factor monomials. So we use greatest common factor, so GCF, and then we use division. Okay, divide by the greatest common factor. Okay, now, sometimes we have 2 numbers that don't have a greatest common factor. Okay, for example, what if I use the number 57 and 61? Right, 57 is 3. If you divide 57 by 3, you get 19. And guess what? This is a prime number. Nothing goes into 61. It's 1 and 61. So here we go. Look at this. There's nothing in common. I can't circle here and here. There's nothing to circle. So what that means is that these two, here's the big word, relatively prime. So there'll be some answers in the homework that are relatively prime. That means that they have nothing in common. Okay? So that's what that means. When they have nothing in common, they're relatively prime. However, you usually won't come into that. So if you're following along on your book, I want you to turn to page 405. So this is page 405, and this is example 3. Okay, 405, example 3. Please follow along. So it tells us the factor 42a cubed plus 14a. Now the first thing that I need to do is figure out what can go out of the 42 and the 14. What is the greatest common factor of those? So I come over here with my little chart and I do 42 divided by 2 is 21, divided by 3 is 7. Okay, now I come over here and I do 14, and that's 2 and 7. Okay, so what do I circle that have the same? 2 and 2, 7 and 7. So now I total up this side. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 7 is 14. So what is my greatest common factor? GCF equals 14. So I know that I'm going to divide by 14. Now, what is 42 divided by 14? Well, it is a nice even number, and it is 3. So I get 14, and then inside I get 3 plus, what is 14 divided by 14? Well, that is easy. That's 1 plus 1 in parentheses. Now, I figure out what else can go out when it comes to the variables. Now, let's look at the A. How many are there? 3. How many are here? 1. So what do they have in common? They have 1 in common. So I write that 1 right there. There's the 1 in common. Now I do A cubed minus A. I'm actually doing, sorry. Don't pay attention to that. That'll just confuse you. I'm taking 1 away out of 3, and I'm left with 2, so I have A squared. And I took 1 away from this guy, A minus A here, boom, he's gone. And so I'm left with that answer right here, 14A plus 3A squared. Oh, sorry, 14A times 3A squared plus 1, all in parentheses, okay? Not too bad. Now this is true, especially when we get to bigger numbers, so I'm going to quickly go over the next example here. So this is still page 405. If you need to go slowly, go for it. This is example 4. Okay, page 405, example 4. We have 36 x squared y, 36 x squared y plus 9xy squared minus 27xy. Okay, so now what I need to do is figure out, in midst of all of these, what do they all, numbers, 36, 9, and 27, all have in common? Now, you don't have to use a little chart. You can use your brain on this one. If you notice, they're all multiples of 9, right? I could divide 27 by 9, I get 3. 9 by 9, I get 1. 36 by 9, I get 4. So that means I know I can divide by 9. So I put 9 out here. Now, what can I do with the x? We have x squared, x, and x. So what is the most that I could pull out of each term is just 1, right? This guy will be left over. So I can pull out an x. So I have 1x that comes out. Then let's look at the y's. I have 1y, 1y, 1y. So I can pull out a y. Okay? So that right there is what's called the GCF. Oh, don't do that. That whole thing is the greatest common factor right here. The 9x, y. Now I just divide. So what is 36 divided by 9? Well, that's 4. What happens when I take 1x away? I'm left with 1x. What happens when I take the 1y and the 1y? Boom, y's go away. I'm left with 4x. Now, what is 9 divided by the 9? That's 1, so I know I have 1. What is x to the 1 minus x to the 1? Oh, x goes away. And what's y2 minus y1? Oh, we're left with just 1y. And then, all that I have left... Oh, I'm sorry, when I wrote this problem down, there was 3 up here. So actually, I have 3 minus 1. I have 2 left. So if you're following along in the example, I just misread that. So it is actually y squared. This is a 3. If you missed that, just look in your book. That's a 3. Then we go to the last term here, to the 27. And we have, what is 27 divided by 9 is 3. So I have, not plus, minus, keep the same sign, minus 3. And then look at this. The x's cancel out, x to the 1 and x to the 1. And so they go away. Boom and boom. And I'm left with just the 3. So that is my final answer. 9xy, all that times 4x plus 1y squared minus 3. And that is my final answer, as you see there in the book, okay? Only other type of problem that you need to know for the homework, this one's very important. They give you an example of this, so I'm going to go over it, and then this video will be over. So we have something that looks like this. X times x plus 1, and then plus 2 times x plus 1. Now, as you can see here, these guys are the same. Okay, look at the green. They're the same. When that happens, all we do is we combine them into 1. Okay, so that equals x plus 1. Okay, we just combine them. Combine them into 1. And then look at this. We take the 2 and the x and the plus and make it into the other one. And just do x plus 2. And there's no, and that's how we leave our answer now, is this right here. Okay, I'm going to do one more quick one just to show you what that really looks like. Okay, so it's not too hard, but that's what it looks like. So here, let's do another one real fast. If I have 3 times x minus 2, and I have minus x times x minus 2, okay, all I do here is I take these and combine them. And so I write x minus 2, and then I take this guy and combine them, and I get 3 minus x. Okay, and that's my final answer. So not very hard. You guys can do it. I believe in you. So if you need to pause that, watch it again, go for it. Here's the homework. We are on page 406. 406. This is 10.1, and we are going to do 2 through 16 even. Then we're going to do 27 through 32 all. And then we're going to do 40 and 41. Okay, there's the homework. So not too bad. Go ahead and go for it. This is going to be due on Wednesday. Please let me know if you have any questions. I hope the test went well. Missing you guys. Hope you have a great start to this week. Mr. H is out.